welcome to From the Inside Out podcast, where I'm your host, Gregory Washington. I kind of think about it because I was raised in the 70s, where you can go to your next door neighbor and borrow sugar and eggs, and then you didn't get talked about the next day at school. So I was raised in a different era, and I think, I don't desire for our kids in this generation to be in our era. They deserve their own, but, family is big, man. And we live in a society right now where families are just being ravished by, the lack of communication, the lack of wanting to be together, wanting to work through issues. And we're going to hear a lot of that today because I'm going to ask some pretty tough questions. So, of course, Terrance, I will start with you, and we'll let our viewers know that you did serve, and I'll let you say how much time did you serve in prison and where.
Okay, I'm Terrance. I served 24 years in the Georgia penal system, and it was tough.
It's tough. Okay, so you did 24 years in the Georgia State Prison Institution here in Georgia.
Right.
So, we have your beautiful family here, your kids. And so if you've been gone for 24 years, that means you had 24 years of absentee in their life.
Exactly.
All right, so I have a question for you. During your incarceration, at any point, did you feel like that you were a victim? Meaning like, wow, man, I got 24 years. These folks gave me 24 years. What I'm gonna do? Did that ever cross your mind?
Well, in the beginning, I did go through the, wow, I got all this time. I ain't had 24 years. I had 2 life sentences.
Wow.
2 consecutive life sentences and 20 years running wild to the last life sentence. But as far as the victim part, I think I was more of a victim of my circumstances. Sometimes we put ourselves in certain situations, and then we become a victim of that situation. And so that's what I did. I put myself in a bad situation, and I had to deal with it.
Okay. So, Terrance, one question. How old are you when you entered to the penal system?
I was 27 years old.
So you was 27 years old, okay? And I see you have 4 amazing kids. So of course they had to be of age, but they was relatively young. Could you tell me how old everybody was when you entered into the system?
I think my baby here, she's the only girl. I think she was 7.
She was 7, okay.
Yeah. And so Boo, my youngest son, he was 8.
He was 8, okay.
AJ was 9.
AJ was 9.
And Big T was 9.
And Big T was 9.
That's wild.
Wow. 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 So you saying, wow, your kids were pretty much elementary age kids. And now their father is facing 2 consecutive life sentences with some more time on it. So I got another question. Did you feel that you would be sitting here with them today?
Man, that was my dream. My dream was to always get back to my kids. And in the beginning, I couldn't see it happening. I never thought in the beginning that this day would happen. Okay. I couldn't see it.
You couldn't see it?
I couldn't see it. I had to get my life right first.
Okay. So some things had to happen. All right, we're going to get to that. But now I want to just focus in and I want to ask each and every one of your kids the same question. It might sound redundant, but what I'm hoping happen is they get an opportunity to tell how you going to prison negatively impacted their life? Because, you know, every child need their father. Let's just be honest. Women, I love my women. They're strong. They always there to support. They're always left holding the bag of a lot of our mistakes, if we want to be honest, as men. Women sometimes don't have a choice. They have to hold it down, and we want to give them credit for that. But I feel like every child deserves a father. So I'm going to start with the baby girl, and I'm just going to let her, for a few minutes, just tell us how your father going to prison, how did that negatively impact your life? And, you know, just share whatever you feel comfortable with.
Got some tissue?
We'll get some.
Look, I got time. I got time for you, baby.
Honestly, it affected me in a lot of different ways. By me being the only girl, I also have not just having my 3 brothers, I have a lot of uncles. So I was always the girl. So I felt like I had it rough for me. I've always wanted my dad. I was always considered a daddy's girl. And my wishes, like every time I had a birthday or every day, period, I used to always wish for my dad to be home. And I used to always wait by the door to see if he's gonna come home. So I used to tell everybody like, oh, my dad is coming, or he's gonna get you if you're mean to me. And then I also had people to tell me he's never coming home. So telling me he's never coming home by me being at a young age, it really bothered me. And it just made me feel like no one loves me at times. But it also made me stronger. As I got older, I just became self-sufficient in a lot of different ways. And I just didn't really fool with a lot of people. I dealt with things a certain kind of way. Sometimes cold-hearted, I guess you could say. It's just because a part of me was missing. And I went through a lot. And so I used to always wonder what my life would be like if my dad was here. Would I have seen certain things? Would I have, gone through certain things? Especially being a girl, I used to just feel like as a child, period, certain things you should never see. Right. You should never go through, you should never see. So I always just think of my own kids as in like, you would never understand, you would never see certain things because you're not supposed to. It's not for you to see or go through. So,
I appreciate that. And I know that's pretty tough for you. And, my heart go out to you because I've learned in learning to know who you are, how you feel about your dad. And one thing encouragingly I want to say is, love covers the multitudes of sins. So I think you being here at his side right now just shows how resilient you are and how you're now able to get what it is that you always desire, because I just feel like it's never too late. So we're going to shift over. I feel real close enough to call AJ. Everybody call him AJ, so I'm not going to call him Adrian. I'm not going to do that to him. But AJ, let's just hear from you, man. Just, we know as men, we're kind of raised up not to be emotional beings, but I'm gonna tell you, man, I know before this over with, I'm gonna be crying. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm probably one of, next to Big T, I'm one of the biggest guys, in here. But go ahead and share, man, how did it negatively impact you, your father, being away so long?
The biggest impact I could say it had on me is it made me it really made me rebellious, as a person. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, I played basketball growing up. You know what I mean? And although I did have both parents in the house, I did have a stepdad, you know, my whole life pretty much.
Right.
But it wasn't my dad, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's a whole nother story, but I went through things with that. And it was just like, so as I was saying, I played basketball growing up, and you know, it was like I never had that dad's assurance, you know, like my friends did, you know what I'm saying? Like when they dads would be able to come to the games, or they dads would be able to tell them like how good of a game they had, you know what I mean? Or I had a cousin, and I was around him all the time, and his dad, you know, kind of like just taught him everything. You know what I'm saying? Everything. You know, he had him doing yard work, all type of stuff, and I just never had that. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of me having to, my life was a lot of me having to like hit my head to find out and teach myself pretty much everything. You know what I mean? If I was knowledgeable about something, it was because I attained it myself, you know? And it was just like, I don't know, life always felt like just something was missing. Like, you know, when you don't have something, you want it like bad. And that was just something that was always in my head. Like, I just wanted my dad. And like she said, you know, of course we think, you know, how would life be if we did have him, or if I did have him? That thought, you know, was very prominent, you know, growing up.
That's good, man. I appreciate you sharing that. One thing I just want to segue into what you said, because I like you, I understand that, you know, that thing you want your dad to be proud of you. You know, if it was a young person, you know, watching this, you know, that's huge, because I think every child wants their parents to be proud of them, or want to affirm them in a way. And, you know, if there's anything you could say to a young person watching this podcast, what would you say your biggest lesson to overcoming that? That you learned, because you say you had to bump your head a few times.
Just experience. Just experience. You know, I don't feel like there's like a thing or a certain one thing tangible that you can do to overcome something like that. I just feel like it just happens through experience, you know, and as you experience things, your emotions develop and they grow. And as that happens, you begin to, you know, get over things. But I feel like experience is
okay.
You know,
That's good.
How you get over that.
That's good. I appreciate that, man. Big T.
Yo.
Good to hear from you, brother. How did your father being in prison negatively impact you growing up?
Okay. In the way of negative impact, you know, I think it was just for me, just a weird time in my young life period. Right around that time, I was just coming over my mother passing. You know, my mom passed, you know, in the fall of '95. So I was going through that transition. Me and my brother were, my other brother on my mom's side were left without her. And then to go through, for one, you know, I didn't grow up with my dad being there every day. You know, they moved when I was at a young age, so they were always away. So at that time, I felt when he did go away that it was really just me, you know, like literally, one of those things to where I felt I was trying to fill voids that I didn't know were there any way possible. Looking for role models, looking for male figures to model my life after was something that I started to find myself doing, because I didn't have, I guess at that point, I didn't have a leader, that leader that I was looking for, that, you know, the captain to give me the soldiers to command the soldiers and tell me what to do. I was out searching, and for me, I felt it led me to go down different paths of choosing uh, people or choosing groups or choosing activities that were not of my natural course, nor were they, had anything to really do with me as a person. I was trying to figure it out. I was finding myself for a while. I had my grandparents around, but I was always looking for that that thing to say, what am I supposed to be doing? One thing that I did rely heavily on growing up, and another thing I didn't realize until I became an adult was how much I started really trying to put my, I would say, faith and hope in God and the Bible, because my grandparents were avid church goers, and I really found a lot of comfort in just saying that through it all, at least I got some rules and some guidelines to kind of help me not make all the wrong decisions. You know what I'm saying? But I will have something to kind of help combat that. And when I would be around different people who would come from two family households or a single family household, it was still, I felt like they had something to go off of. And for me, having direction, having some type of a clear goal or something that I'm after was something that I always missed in my life. And so I had emotions like love, uh, care for, your neighbor, things like that, that I think I shut down, and I had calluses that I didn't even know that I was developing over the years, because there was a huge part of me that was missing. And I befriended people sometimes, I think, out of necessity, and not because it was genuine. I felt like I became, maybe even a user to a point, because I felt I could see certain things in people that they didn't see, and I would use it as a tool to help myself, because I felt like you got this and I'm missing something. So it's a way for me to even the playing field. I would say I would use people's emotions against them, and just really guard myself. And I really became kind of shut down in my later teen years, probably 18 and on. Probably about 18 on, I really just got into my own little box to where I really didn't associate with too many people. Or if I did, like I said, I feel like I was robbing them of that genuine experience of me and us really getting to be around each other. So emotionally, I would say that was probably the biggest negative impact, was emotionally, and my relationship building was something that took probably the biggest hit, and of not having my family head there.
All right. So that's good, man. I appreciate you, and I just appreciate you sharing that, because I know Shane is taking some mental notes, because I've heard three of Terrance kids speak, and the number one thing I'm seeing is abandonment. I'm seeing these emotions of him not being there, and you all as kids left to figure it out. So I hope later in the podcast, we'll give our viewers some tools that will help them as they go through this. So last but definitely not least, uh, Lil T, baby boy. Come on, man. Give it to us.
Uh, my my situation is a little different from everybody else's, because once he left, I was just me and my mom and my sister. Like, I didn't have nobody else at a certain point. So a lot of places and times we moved, is I'm the man. I gotta not figure things out at so much, but I had to be like the comfort. I gotta be like, show that things is all right when I don't even know how to do that. So starting off young, it took a toll on you. Like, not a toll is like it affects you in doing something, but it take a toll on you. Like, man, all these what ifs play a whole lot of part in it. Cause like, what if he was here, I wouldn't have to do this, or if he was here, maybe maybe I'd be better off, or I wouldn't have to be in the hood and project. But getting older, some of those lessons without him mold you into being who you are, because you know how to have tough skin, you know how to go without, you know how to make do with what you got, be happy with what you have. But some of that stuff, could be avoided if you have, definitely a father, around to help you and to guide you and to discipline you. You know, when you got a father yourself, you make a lot of mistakes.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and it's certain mistakes that you make. You have to realize, like, you put you in, like he said, had a bad situation. So by me just knowing that he had a bad situation, I try to avoid a lot of situations.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them good, some of them bad. If I just feel like, that situation might not be right, I just ain't gonna do it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it could be beneficial, but you just so caught up in your shell that you already don't let nobody in. You always just trying to, make do, make stuff fit, put pieces together that sometimes don't fit. So you lean on, older people, older dudes in the neighborhood or uncles. Like, so I always ask them about everything, call them about all types of advice, simple things. Right. Like how to tie a tie.
Wow.
Certain things like that, you don't learn how to tie a tie. Your daddy teach you how to tie a tie. You know, how to change a tire, simple stuff. When you get into your first little school fight or something, he tell you, hey, how to protect yourself. When you don't have that, mama there, but mama gonna tell you, give you just love and affection. She ain't gonna show you how to, take care of yourself as a man, because she's not a man.
That's good, Lil T. I want to say something, man. I want you to expound on something that it was just so important. So you said, you had to learn how to become the man. Like, you automatically, it was in your DNA to say, you know what? I got my sister, I got the chest up, and I need to do what it is that I have to do. So I'm pretty sure somebody on this podcast is probably watching that. And I just want to say, first of all, much respect to you. And I want to say to our listeners, that is not the way it go. Because it don't go like that. You said it later on. You said, hey, you need your pop there to teach you how to tie a tie, man. When you get into that little scruffle, you needed him to show you how that went. So one thing I would say, and we're going to let Shana address that as well, is role reversals when it comes to parent relationships is real important. And I definitely want to hear from her a little later on, but I'm just going to push it back to your father. I'm just going to ask him one more question. And then we're just going to have an open dialogue. We're going to bring Shana in to kind of navigate what she have heard, because she's here as a sounding board, and she's going to give us some professional advice on where we pick up at. But T, this question for you, man, because I know you and I know your heart. I need you to help our viewers understand a lot of the emotions of shock, anger, denial, and grief. Like when somebody a human being tell you, you have 2 consecutive life sentences, plus some more time to do. I don't know how to process that. I know what I had to go through to process what was said to me, but help our viewers understand, like, mentally, what was going on, man? Was some anger, some denial, some shock, some grief? Like, what was going on?
All of the above. I went through periods of times where I was angry, definitely shocked. I never saw myself going to prison for that kind of time. But like I said, I put myself in a situation that landed me in prison with that kind of time. And emotionally, I was a mess. One of the biggest things is, you look at you out here running the street and doing what you do, and you call yourself making the way for your family, right? But at the end of the day, that ain't what we doing. That's not what we're doing. We making the way for us to enjoy us at the time. And the family may get some of the blessings from that, but at the end of the day, when you're taken away from your family, it's not a blessing. And so, just having their birthdays come up, wanting to see them and can't see them, wanting to talk to them, can't call them, all that takes a toll on a man. And so, like, for me, I had to figure out, what was I gonna do? Like, T, what are you going to do to get out of here? And I had a conversation with this old man one day, and it was right before I went to prison. And he said, son, just get your heart right with God, and you'll be okay. And so I began to just seek God, and once I started doing that, things started changing a little bit. I would still have those moments where I was an emotional wreck. I would lay in my bed at night and cry because I couldn't talk to my kids. Or my kids would go through things and I would be so upset that, like my baby boy said, he shut down. I was shut down on people because I had so much built up in me. And I had to learn how to bring those emotions under control. It's really something when you put in a situation where you can't do nothing about it. When your kids need something and you can't provide, And I grew up, like, it's funny that my son brought that up about he had to be the man, because when he said it, I thought about one of the last things I said to him before I was taken out of the courtroom. And that's what I told him. I said, you the man now. Take care of your sister and your mama. But man, it's like we go through so much as men already. And then we bring children into this world and we take them through so much. So I figured, I'm gonna stop all this crime.
Please.
But I figured I had to do something to stop all the madness.
All right, so that's a good segue. So I was going to ask you your next question. When did you realize that breaking this cycle, T, had to happen, man? You got these babies, you know what I mean? When, because I know how it is. When we behind the wall, it's a concrete jungle back there. We have to figure out ways to adapt, ways to do things. When did you say, you know what, man? The buck stopped with me.
That's something, because my youngest son, he wrote me a letter. And in the letter, he said he was stunting like his daddy. Right? And so he's young at the time. And it was a Lil Wayne and Baby video. The name of the song was Stunting Like My Dad. Right? And so one day, I'm sitting downstairs watching the videos, and I saw that video come on. And so I'm watching it. I caught it like towards the middle. And then when it went off, I saw the title. And I was like, oh no, this ain't, that's it. And I went and wrote my son a letter, and I told him, That's the wrong thing. You can't be like that. You can't be like I was, because you know you never know how the people that you're around growing up, how they see you. So you know, and it took that situation, and then even when me and AJ got together, he said some things to me, and I was just like, wow, you know, the way people see us when we out here in these streets, you would think that they would tell your kids something good about you, but they telling your kids the street you, because they don't see nothing but the street you. Right. So my kids grew up hearing about their dad being this gangster. Right. You know, their dad out here stunting, doing what he do. Right. And so they thought that this is how we're supposed to be. Until I had to just say, no, this ain't how we gonna be. Right. You know, I was wrong. I'm man enough to say I was wrong, and I'm man enough to say this is how we gonna do it going forward. So I began at that time changing my life for real, because I had started getting real close to God, but it took that moment with my son saying I'm stunned like my daddy. Can you imagine how I would have been if my son would have came to prison with me? You know, and so they've had to endure some situations because of my incarceration that I would have never allowed them to go through had I been home. But you know, I've learned that as men, even behind the wall, you know, me and my daughter, we were able to build a wonderful relationship, me and my youngest son, and even me and Big T. And it wasn't really till I came home that me and AJ started building a great relationship. And we've had our struggles, you know, since I came home. But at the end of the day, you know, our motto is family is everything. Family first. You know, that's our family motto. You know, so no matter what's going on, you know, it's all about the family. You know, and so even with my grandkids, you know, I try my best to guide them the right way now that I'm home. You know, it was one type of relationship when I was in prison. And I thought, yeah, we got a pretty good relationship. Yeah, we cool, we this, we that. But when I came home, I realized that that was a prison relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, in prison, like my daughter told me the other night, she said, what happened to my daddy that used to call me all the time? And, you know, I'd be waiting on my dad to call because I had stuff to talk to him about. Right. Now you home. Yeah. We don't have that relationship. So, you know, I had to start thinking about that too. Like, we have to build a right now relationship.
I got you. So we're gonna stop right there, and we're gonna let Shana just dive in. I want her to dive in because I want her to help our viewers understand the importance. You all at this table today is huge, man. I think we put points on the board for families that have been have been destroyed because of incarcerated fathers or even mothers. So I'm gonna let her dive in and use her expertise to kind of guide us. Shana, tell us about your business a little bit, because I definitely want people to know we got the real deal in here.
Well, I'm Shana Trimble. I am a licensed marriage family therapist. I do a couple of things around family. I hold a few titles. One is that I'm an owner of my own practice. And so I strive to pour back into our community. And the reason why I say that is because I too grew up with family that was incarcerated. My brother, that's how I got in touch with Greg. Yep. And a dad that was missing. I mean, this is very common in what we know. But what is not common in what we know is the thought process that the relationship doesn't end, should not end with the physical separation. And that is what we're not taught. We are taught that when our families leave us, incarceration, for the sake that my dad's not there because he's with somebody else, my mom's not there, that somehow is an end. But it doesn't have to be. And so that is the impact of knowing that it does not have to be. But we transition in something new. It's big. So you ending it on the fact that was a prison relationship, Yes, it was. It was a relationship. It wasn't one that was necessarily thrown away. It's not one that I said, okay, well now that you're there, I don't want you anymore. You know that you are now a void. So being able to teach people how to still actually create a relationship, a real genuine connection, even when there is physical and emotional separation, is a big deal. Because even when you're saying, I'm in that cell and I'm feeling like this and I'm feeling emotionally trapped, guess what? That same feeling that you're going through, they're going through. Because they can't do nothing about it either. So being able to resonate that, guess what? Even in this, we have something in common. I'm doing time, they doing time. It's just our time look different because we're apart. And so that is one of the biggest things, because if we don't get a hold of that, we do leap forward. Like him said, I had to be the dad. It's hard to be a dad when I'm still a kid. It's hard to be a man when I'm still a kid. I don't even know what that means. It's so resonating for us because our communities have done that. We have left little people to be big people in some shape, way, or form, right? When Big T mentioned that the emotional connection, like all of those things have to learn from somebody. We have to learn how to be emotionally connected through our relationships with the people that we have. We have to learn how to be a good boyfriend, a good girlfriend, all of these things. But we need teachers, we need leaders, and those teachers and leaders are typically your parents. Mm. Now, whether we teach them right or wrong, because I can't, we all know it's no 100% parenting guide that kids get to say, "Oh, you did everything right." But it's the idea that I got some type of guideline, some type of playing field, some type of green space to say, "Okay, this is where I'm going to start." And when I try, if it's not right, I have somebody to say, "You know what, that didn't work." I tried it on that girl and she didn't go for it. You know what I'm saying? So it's those things, right? But those things can still be taught even from a distance.
Definitely.
Because those are communicative things. I know that certain people love me, and you'll say, I think we all can resonate with this. Well, we have loved ones that we haven't talked to on a day-to-day basis. But when I talk to you, it's a good time. We catch up, we know we good. That is the kind of connections that we want to keep going.
Okay, Shane, I got some questions for you. And I think these are questions that for everybody. Okay. Because you said something that was important. Everybody have been impacted by the judicial system at some level.
Absolutely.
Whether it's your father, whether it's your uncle, whether it's your mother, whether it's your aunt. All right. And I feel, and this is just my personal opinion, that it is something out there that opposes every family, whether they experience incarceration or not. So what have you seen in your profession, doing what you do, that you can help our viewers understand when it comes to family legacy and the importance of breaking generational cycles and generations and in poverty and in cost? Like, what do you see the most?
The most that I see is the idea that somehow incarceration makes that person that's incarcerated dead to us.
Wow.
That separation, that level of separation, that length of time, meaning that we start to second guess, how in the world can this person who I want in my life, how can they be in my life if they are not physically present?
All right. So I heard something in the episode earlier, and I'm going to pick on you, big bro, Big T. So Big T lost his mother at an early age, and then he lost his father to incarceration. So we would say, out of all the siblings, Big T have experienced abandonment.
Absolutely.
And Big T, if a young person was listening to you, whether their parents experienced incarceration or not, but just that abandonment, if you had a question for Shana, for a young Big T, what would you ask her?
I would ask her, I think one of the biggest things is it okay to just live in what your story is instead of always trying to recreate a different narrative? You know, I feel like when you in a messed up position, you always try to like give yourself that happily ever after. And that's what I always did. So I would say, really just, is it okay, or what is a what would be a healthy way, a healthy outlet to feeling like you by yourself?
So that's real because it is important for us to live in the now, to live in the present, to understand the story from which I'm in. Because when we don't do that, we create a fairy tale of around what we want, and then we start failing because somehow I'm trying to reach something that does not exist. So then my expectations are false. My expectations around how I'm supposed to act, what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to show up is based on something that's not actually happening. So then when I start failing over and over again, I embody that as I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing something well enough, or everything is against me. But in actuality, it's not, because I need to redesign how I show up in this world and for myself based on my current situation. And
That's
that is how I grow. That is how I learn, because my situation will continue to grow. It will continue to change. It will continue to, and so I adapt in that way to the reality of what's going on. But that doesn't take away my dream around what I want.
That's good. That's good. So, we're getting ready to come to a close. But one thing, um, you know, y'all father took Tyro dads, and this is how he kind of entered into. I think me and him had crossed paths somewhere down the line, but I think it's where me and him came connected at the hip. And he always was talking about ways to put something into his kids' life positive. So Tyro teach us actually to own our stories. So Terrance had a workshop called Reflection, where he looked in the mirror and for 3 minutes he talked to himself. And I just believe, me being in a room, I believe everything that was probably going on with him emotionally is now at the table. Because we talked about a time like this where he would be able to get with his kids and kind of face off, like, and he owned that. I know he didn't own it probably to you all, but he owned it in front of some men that don't even know y'all. And that was one of the biggest things I remembered about that process. He was like, man, I know I can't make up for the 24 years plus that I was away, but one thing I can believe and I can say is he said he would be willing to put in all the work, because I asked him this question, and we'll close with this question, but I want to kind of hear from everybody. And we'll start with you, T. How is it important it is to break, to really not break, because I believe y'all already breaking that cycle, but how important the Franklin Brown legacy is moving forward? You mentioned you have grandkids now. You mentioned that you can't build on an old foundation. You're building on a new foundation, being out now with your adult kids, grandkids. How important to that? And if our viewers were listening, what's one golden nugget moving forward that you would give them in this process? Because you're in the process. Tuesday, Lord's will, we'll be celebrating 1 year being out. So you still in it. You're not out of it yet. So give us something.
Oh man, that's a lot. Um, the biggest thing is the foundation.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing. You got to have a good foundation. And so for me, being able to start building a new foundation while still incarcerated.
Okay.
So coming home, and going forward, it's like, let's be there for each other in a way that we have never been there for each other. Meaning, it's one thing to have the prison relationship and then come home and think everything's fine. Everything is not fine.
Right.
So you start day one every day. We're going to build on today. We're going to do things right today.
Okay.
And you have to do that every single day you wake up. When my son AJ called me this morning, it kind of touched my heart. It's 7:00 this morning. He talking about come get me so I can spend a day with you before we go do the podcast. And so I talked to one of my partners and he said, ain't that amazing, man? That your son want to spend the time with you like that? And I said, yeah, that's awesome. And so it's just really like, you have to make a conscious decision to do better every day. And so my thing is, I want to be the best father, the best friend, the best granddad that I can be. I can't make up for lost time. And trying to do that, I think you mess things up because you'll overdo it. And then ain't nobody happy. So what you do is all the things that I thought about while in prison, those are the things that I do now, except I do it one step at a time. And I just follow God. So however he lead me, that's what I do. If he lead me to have a conversation with them, that's what I do.
That's good. That's good. So we're going to have two more. I want Little T because he had to become the man. So Little T, big hats tipped to you, man. What would you tell a young father that had to become Little T? From your experiences, now having your father back in your life, what is it you would tell a young father that had to become the man? What would you say?
Well, for one, I would say you always gotta have your own mind. Through it all, you don't matter what situation, you gotta have your own mind. Don't matter what nobody else is doing, you gotta have your own. That'll save you from a lot of headaches. They're gonna get headaches, but it'll be less.
Okay.
And it won't be easy, but over time it becomes normal. And then some of the stuff that you did learn as you get older, you'll see that it benefited in the long run. By you learning early so much responsibility, you know how to handle certain situations. You don't spaz out when somebody tells you no, you can't have your way. You just, okay, now you find a different way of how to achieve your success. You just go a little harder.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. In closing, we're going to let Shana just give to our viewers just, from a professional standpoint, if a family's going through this type of reunification, they're reuniting after a long period of time, what would you give them for us when it comes to family legacy?
To understand what you value and be intentional in what you're building.
Understand what you value and be intentional about what you're building. That's great. That's great. Wow. 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 That's good, y'all. Say that again, because that was just so good. Say that again, because I think people might need to be writing this down.
Yeah, because you have to understand what you value. If I value you, if I want you in my life, if I want to be in yours, then I need to be intentional about showing up, creating what I want with you, telling you I love you, showing appreciation, being honest, communicating when things not right. I have to be intentional. I have to show up even when I don't feel like it. You have to be intentional.
All right, y'all. So we're gonna end here, man. I'm so excited. This is our fifth podcast since we started, and I wanted to kind of end this series of fathers being absent from their kids. I know it's important. It's my story. It's so many other people's stories. So I just pray that our listeners really understand that we just want to teach through real life testimony. This is what's happening. This is real, y'all. This is not pre-scripted. People didn't come in with scripts and say, this is what I'm gonna say. This is real feelings. And I think those are the best teachers, which you heard that on the podcast today. Some of this experiencing what we experienced. So I'm signing off. I'm Greg Washington. I'm your host. I just pray somebody life was changed through viewing this podcast today. Thank you.